bell tolls. The midnight hour is upon us. It's time once again for two internet strangers to discuss the good and evil of the horror genre. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the terror within the Hallow-Holics Anonymous podcast.
If you marry my sister, my father's gonna kill you.
Where are we now?
Somewhere between The Late Show and Good Morning America, I think.
Trevor, you're not going to believe this, but it's gone.
What's gone?
The pizza!
You didn't even leave me a...
What chicken stand?
And she's a small. I'm kidding around, of course.
Give me that damn remote.
I feel like a meal. It feels like a test. You know, I'm sorry I'm not the kind of guy you're looking for. I'm not smart, I'm not cultured, and I'm not sophisticated. You know, I'm not no Charles Bronson.
Wait, stop! Oh my God, Maddie, let's stay here. We're finally home.
We've got an hour and 30 to get out of this until we're stuck in TV land forever. We don't have time for this, Corey.
Do you want to record the podcast then? That'll probably give us 5 minutes to spare.
Yeah, sure, that sounds good.
Hi, I'm Corey.
I'm Maddie.
And this is Hallow-Holics Anonymous, a show dedicated to all things horror and occasionally Halloween.
In this episode, we're discussing the topic, which is hard to define.
The topic was supposed to be reality jumping horror, and I think we sort of pulled it off, but I'll let Maddie explain why it went kind of funny.
It's kind of a challenge. It's a little too specific almost. It's not really a genre you explore unless you're just binge watching Sliders.
Or Quantum Leap.
Or Quantum Leap. Yeah, actually, why don't we just talk about Sliders and Quantum... You know what? We'll get back to that.
Yeah.
It started with you bringing up the topic of the movie Stay Tuned, and we decided we could easily base an episode on that, and then I couldn't find my DVD, and there was no streaming option online, and the DVD online is like $30 to order, so Stay Tuned was just out of the running.
Is it too soon to say that movie might have died with John Ritter? That was supposed to be funny.
Yeah, that wasn't funny. John Ritter was a saint.
So yeah, we were going to do Stay Tuned, and I was going to do Waxwork II, which I did, but we couldn't find Stay Tuned, so Maddie got Shocker.
Yeah, because you threw out that topic, the movie name, and I was like, well, I actually haven't watched Shocker yet, so I love Wes Craven. That's a great idea.
I had remembered a little more reality jumping in Shocker than the end chase scene, but we'll talk about that further later.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a bone to pick with you, sir.
Oh, what have I done? Oh, that reminds me, I have an apology to make too, but we'll get to that. What have I done?
You suggested Shocker, and that's all I'll say at the moment.
I have a feeling we're going to argue about this because I actually enjoyed it.
Well, before we talk about the movies, or actually this month's horror pack,
Dun, dun. Oh, wait, that's actually supposed to be a thing.
Let's talk about some horror news.
All right, Maddie, what do you have for us first?
For fans of the Little Vampire books, there is yet another movie remake coming out on May 25th. There was an infamous early 2000s version with the kid from a lot of popular movies at the time. I don't remember his name. And then there was an earlier Canadian made-for-TV movie. But this new one is animated, and it will be released on May 25th before this episode is even up. These books that it's based off were a favorite of mine in 4th grade when I found the motherload of them at Goodwill. Some of them in German, but that's neither here nor there. My mom would give me a couple of bucks to go hog wild in the book section there because I was an avid reader. And these were some of the best I've ever found, so I kind of have high hopes for this movie.
So is it an actual kids book, or like is this kid like doing the let the right one in thing and like jumping on people and eating old folks?
It's a kids book series. Not quite as dark as Roald Dahl, but a little bit more mature than Peter Rabbit.
Okay, I got you. I feel a little weird talking about this because it's gross and horrible, but props from a Serbian film were briefly on sale on eBay this week. I'm pretty sure that the listings got taken down. I don't think they sold. Although one of them was up to $6,000, and that would have been the baby from, if you don't know what I'm talking about, and if you don't know what that baby was from, then count yourself lucky, and I'm not going to tell you. I will say nothing else about this baby because I still have PTSD from that scene. Anyway, on YouTube you could buy the baby. They had a severed gentleman's phallus, as well as a severed head, all of which, even the severed head, made me very uncomfortable because that movie made me very uncomfortable.
Kind of makes me wonder if Salo had been made around the same time, whether they would have put the wedding dinner up for auction on eBay too.
I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, don't look into it too much.
Well, now I have to watch it because I'm an idiot. So, Salo, you say? I will check that out.
Well, July 19th, we'll see a release of Mermaid, Lake of the Dead in Russian theaters. An evil mermaid ghost falls in love and decides to drag the object of her affection into a watery grave. No U.S. release date yet, but hopefully it's not long after. Absolutely gorgeous poster.
Is that G-O-R-E, just? Were you being clever?
No. Well, I guess it's both. Yes, gorgeous.
Yeah, because that's actually how you spell gorgeous, too.
Yeah, too. Hold on. Let me put on a crypt key for voice. I'm not going to be quite as good as Jonathan at this. Absolutely gorgeous poster.
That was okay. Yeah. So that's kind of an untapped resource, the whole mermaid genre of horror films. I could dig on that, like...
And it's funny because the mythology of mermaids, other than Hans Christian Andersen, is pretty darn scary. It's usually about these selfish, man-drowning monsters.
Yeah, they weren't cool at all. And even when they were cool, like the original story of The Little Mermaid has her cutting her fin in half to give her legs. Like, it's got some brutal stuff in it.
Yeah, and then her sisters are like, well, if you kill him, you won't die.
Oh, yeah, that's right, and she does.
No, she doesn't kill him.
Does she kill herself? I thought one of them died at the end.
She disappears into sea foam.
Oh, that's what it was. She turns into sea foam. I'd have killed the dude, for the record.
He was kind of, like, oblivious to her, so it's like, yeah. But I guess the moral is, if someone doesn't love you, don't kill them. Something to take to heart.
So basically, don't kill anyone. All right.
Speaking of death, which is often the subject of this show, Lady Yuriko Hoshi passed away recently at the age of 74 after a long battle with lung cancer. One of the world's great beauties of yesteryear, she was known for her roles in several Godzilla pictures. She will be dearly missed.
Man, you always are reporting on somebody dying. That's dark and depressing.
Unfortunately, like, I'm in a betting pool at work with one of my coworkers, so we kind of follow celebrity deaths. It's like fantasy football, but...
No. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
So, Rob Zombie says that we shouldn't expect 3 from Hell anytime this year, which was kind of to be expected because he's about to go on tour again with Marilyn Manson all summer. He said he wouldn't start editing until September at the earliest. He wasn't sure at the time when the tour actually concluded. Personally, I think there's a good chance he'll start this in, like, July or August because Manson's bound to throw, like, a temper tantrum and the tour is going to end early.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to. Like, the dude's definitely getting up there in age. He's got some stuff going on that he's working out. And I've always dug most of his music. You know, I kind of got into dark music before Manson was a thing, and I wasn't a huge fan of his fans, so that kind of turned me off to his scene a little bit, but
You know,
Smells Like Children is a really good album, I will say that.
Well, you know what? My favorite Marilyn Manson album is also one of my favorite Rob Zombie albums. It's the original soundtrack to Bride of Chucky.
Oh, yeah. It's a good soundtrack. In the same article, Rob Zombie mentions having his own editing studio in his house. So he invites the editors over, and they do their thing in the comfort of his own home. And as someone who's working on building up his own recording studio and possibly editing studio down the road, I think that's super cool. Like, I can't think of anything better than to be able to, like, sit around and do all your editing and composing and all that stuff just right in a dedicated room in your house. I think that's awesome. And I'd really like to see a picture of his editing room.
Even though I'm not a massive fan of him as a director, I definitely respect him as an artist.
Mm-hmm. This is slightly off subject, but he's a big sci-fi geek, and I'm pretty sure he's a horror geek. But Deadmau5 actually does streams from his studio, and he's got this amazing desk in front of a big mixer and like these giant speakers and all his gear everywhere. It's really, really cool. But I'll never be able to afford that, obviously, because I will never make that much money off of, well, the podcast. We'll be rich podcasters one day, but maybe then I will have a studio like that. So before we get into the game,
The game, which we still don't quite have a song for.
No. I was going to work on it yesterday, but life got in the way. So I have to apologize to all of you are probably nerds. That's why you're listening to this. I assume many of you caught on to the fact that I got Oceania, the country in 1984, confused with Jupiter's moon Europa.
Well, and I got Boobarella mixed up with Stripperella.
Yeah. So I suppose this is a mass apology for us complicating science and boobs and getting them confused.
Science and Pam Anderson fans everywhere. And we know those two subjects converge often.
Dude, anybody who listens to our shit, probably.
All right, it's time for the horror pack, I guess.
Oh, shit, I forgot about horror pack. Where did I put them? Oh, they're right here. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for May's Horror Pack. I will be keeping Horror Pack for another month because they did put movies in I like, number one. Number two, I canceled my Shudder subscription. I'm not saying you guys should cancel your Shudder subscription, but I canceled mine. It was a whole big thing. We're not going to get into it. First up, we have a film called Resolution. The Village Voice says it puts the cabin in the woods to shame. The summary says, in an abandoned cabin on the edge of an Indian reservation. All right, well, there's a red flag there, Indian reservation. Native American reservation, guys, it's 2018. Anyway, in this reservation, Mike stages a risky intervention to force his friend, Chris, off meth and into rehab.
Oh, I've seen that movie!
Why does everybody go to the woods to get off drugs and it goes wrong?
Oh, actually, I gotta say, having seen the film, it actually works. It's perfect because it's so cliche.
Okay, I mean, it worked in the Evil Dead remake as well, but...
You're going to love that movie.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so what begins as an attempt to save his friend's life takes an unexpected turn when ominous threats start appearing around the house, and they realize that Chris's addictions are the least of their worries. Maddie gives it a good review. I'll give it a chance.
In the filter of an independent film, it's excellent. It's interesting that they compared it to Cabin in the Woods. I can see the parallels. It's good. You're not going to be disappointed.
No, that's cool. I mean, I'm a fan of those volumes of blood movies that we talked about that first or second episode way back. So, like, I'm willing to support indie movies no matter the budget. So I'm sure I'll dig it. This one, on the other hand, I have a feeling is not really going to deserve my support. It is the Horror Pack limited edition director's cut version of The Black Dahlia Haunting. Not Murders.
Wow.
Haunting. Yeah. This one on the back, Chris Alexander from Fangoria says it's moody, haunting, and surreal. I don't trust Fangoria yet, but I'm going to give them a chance when they relaunch, so we'll see.
I subscribed, so.
I think I probably will too, at least for the first year.
It's not a bad deal. I mean, like $60 for 4 really thick issues in a year. That's not bad.
All right, so Los Angeles, 1947. An aspiring actress named Elizabeth Short is found brutally murdered in an empty parking lot. The media dubs her the Black Dahlia due to her penchants for dark clothing and the fact that she wore a dahlia all the time. Like she wore dahlias in her hair, maybe? I forget. Anyway, her murder remains unsolved to this day. Los Angeles now. A young woman, Holly, is visiting from New York after she's informed of the brutal murder of her father and stepmother by her younger brother, Tyler, who is blind. It's not funny because it's blind. It's funny because I'm picturing this dude flailing about trying to murder his family. I'm going to not talk about this anymore before I say something horribly offensive.
Yeah, pull the brakes now.
Upon meeting Tyler's psychiatrist, Dr. Owen, Holly soon becomes aware that she is not in full possession of the facts surrounding the murder. Obviously. Plagued by violent dreams, Tyler has been drawing the face of a woman he could have never possibly met. A woman identical to Elizabeth Short. Yeah, this sounds awful.
But you never know. Sometimes those movies somehow surprise you.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I'm going to give it a chance eventually. Like, a lot of my horror pack hasn't even left the shrink wrap yet, but I'll get to them at some point.
You know what? I have movies that I've owned for 5 years that haven't left the shrink wrap, and I keep thinking to myself, someday.
So before I read the title of this next one, I'm going to read you the cast of characters, as well as this little bit in the bottom right corner. So, this movie stars Kate Beckinsale, Jim Sturgis, Brendan Gleeson, Ben Kingsley, and Michael Caine. And it is from the mind of Edgar Allan Poe. It is called Stonehurst Asylum.
Oh, I remember that movie.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's not that great. I'm pretty sure I tried to watch it once, and I got maybe 15 minutes in and stopped.
Ugh.
Yeah. So, when a young doctor, Edward Newgate, arrives at Stonehurst Asylum in search of an apprenticeship, he is warmly welcomed by Superintendent Dr. Lamb and a mesmerizing woman by the name of Eliza Graves. Edward is intrigued by Lamb's modern methods of treating the insane until a series of unusual events leads them to make a horrifying discovery, exposing Lamb's utopia and pushing Edward to the limits of his conscience. Inspired by a short story from Edgar Allan Poe, Stonehurst Asylum is a tale in which nobody is who or what they appear to be. Yeah, I'll give it a shot again, but I'm pretty sure that, man, Ben Kingsley picked some crap. Like, dude must have some, like, child support payments or alimony or court costs, because he picked some bad movies. Or maybe he's just old enough and retired enough to be like, I don't give a shit. This movie sounds funny. I'll do it.
Well, even Boris Karloff made some bad choices later in his career because he just wanted to work. It wasn't a money issue. He just wanted to work.
Yeah,
I will say, actually, being familiar with this film and familiar with the story and familiar with a stage play version of it that my mom wrote, it's just not really a story that's structured well for a full-length film. It doesn't need to be that long. If it's that long, you immediately kind of figure out the twist. And there's certainly a twist. I think short story format is best for that one, and the film did not work.
So is the Poe story called Stonehurst Asylum?
I don't even remember what the story's called. I know the story very well. I've seen it
I feel like I
times.
probably know the story, but I need to hear the title. I don't think that's the title. Like I read a lot of Poe back in the day, but I don't know.
The System of Dr. Tar and Professor Feather.
I'm not aware of that one. At least I don't remember reading that one.
Yeah, there have been a lot of adaptations of it. Again, Grand Guignol was famous for it. It was one of their kind of main dreadful, terrifying stories.
I gotcha. All right, so the reason I will be keeping Horror Pack for another month is also a movie I probably will never watch. I've seen this movie twice in my life, and both times I've loved it, but I've sworn never to watch it again because it makes me very, very uncomfortable, and that is the original version of The Last House on the Left.
Oh, damn. They threw that in
the
there?
Wes Craven version. Yeah, they did. And when I first got it, it looks like the remake. The cover looks terrible. But it's definitely the 72 version, I believe. I'm not even going to read the back of this because this movie's pretty well burned into my brain.
Now, it came before I Spit on Your Grave, right?
I don't remember which is first, but that's in the same ballpark. Both of those movies I have a lot of trouble watching.
One definitely inspired the other.
For sure. So, Last House on the Left. Two girls go to the city for a concert. Two innocent, sweet little high school girls. They meet some dudes there. The dudes follow them back, brutalize, and I can't remember if they murdered both of them or if they kept one alive. Do you remember?
Gosh, it wasn't a movie that I stomached very easily, but I think they both die.
I think they do too. These people show up on the doorstep of the girl's parents, and more terrible things ensue. Not necessarily the terrible things you think are going to happen, but terrible things ensue. It's a very difficult movie to watch, but it's very real, and it's very just dirty and filthy and brutal. Like, I definitely think people should experience it once, but like, be prepared when you go in. And I'm not one to throw around the phrase trigger warning, but if anything deserves a trigger warning, it is this film.
These types of movies make you wonder if it's trying to put the magnifying glass on a person's motivation for an eye, or whether or not revenge is truly what you want in a terrible situation.
Yeah, I think that movie does cover this, and I think that anytime I see a scene that involves rape or other such brutality visited upon a woman, I ask myself, is this here to further the plot, or is this here to shock us? And I think in this case, it's there for both. It's definitely very shocking and very horrible, but it also is integral to the plot, and it does push the movie forward. It's in the movie, and it should be in the movie, but again, be very, very cautious going into this film. You're going to see some shit.
It's not my style of film at all. But I'm willing to give Wes Craven the benefit of the doubt, because if there's anything I know about him, that even for the movies I don't like, shocker, he's got good reasons behind them.
Yeah, and he's a pretty level-headed dude. Like, he definitely thinks stuff through.
He was a level-headed dude.
Oh, yeah. Rip, bro.
He was just, I loved him.
So that is Horror Pack for May 2018.
Throughout the run of this show, that sounds like one of the best horror packs you've gotten.
Yeah, this one hasn't been bad at all. There was one more, I think, that I liked a lot. I think the one with Dawn of the Dead had a couple of good things in it, but I don't remember.
Well, real quick, does the Last House on the Left does that have commentary?
I'm sure it does.
Watch it.
Audio commentary by Wes Craven and the producer.
Okay, definitely watch it with commentary on.
Oh, wow, and there's actor commentary, too. I'd be really interested in that.
Yeah, Wes Craven does really good commentary.
So one more thing about the Horror Pack stuff before I go on. I've also subscribed to the Coffin Box through the same company, which comes with a bunch of... It's supposed to have, like, a T-shirt and an issue of Rue Morgue and some other random stuff, so we will be unboxing that in later episodes as well. I think that comes out every other month, though. It's every 2 months. But yeah, I may end up biting the bullet and subscribing anyways, so we'll see.
I do think it would be really cool, though, if when you do your Coffin Box, you do videos, we could post it on the blog to accompany the podcast.
But then people would see me. I ain't that pretty.
Well, you can wear a creepy mask if you want.
We'll see. I just find actual, like, unboxings to be so cliche at this point. If you look up any horror YouTube, they're all unboxing the same shit.
That's
like,
true.
even Horror Packs got, like... There's one girl that I'm pretty sure doesn't do any other unboxings other than, like... Well, she doesn't have any other content. It's all just unboxing. And because she's a super pretty girl with hair... colored the same as the Bride of Frankenstein and she opens them with a butcher knife. She gets followers for that.
Well, we'll leave it up to the listeners to decide if they want separate videos with unboxing. They should try to email us or tweet at us.
Yeah, if y'all want to see my mug unboxing stuff, I definitely have the gear to do it. Let me know, and I'll borrow a GoPro from work.
Yeah, even then, he could just do it Giallo style, where you just see his black gloves.
Oh, that's true. Or I could do a Giallo style and wear black lingerie and stand in the shadows.
You'll be wearing other stuff, right?
I'm not promising anything at this point. Maybe high heels. Is that where you're going with that?
Well, I guess it would. It would be an interesting gimmick.
Yeah.
All right, I think it's time for the death game.
Let's please do something else.
Guess that death game. All right, sir, you have somehow managed to best me 2 times in a row.
I have. It's because I'm super smart. I don't know if you guys realize this.
Well, it's your turn first this time, but...
All right. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and hand you this one on a silver platter.
Oh, really?
Not
if I hand it to you first. Wait.
You're ruining my setup. I'm going to hand it to you on a silver platter covered in bees! 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 The bees!
Are you serious? Is that your question?
That is my question.
Oh, my God. Con Air. No, The Wicker Man.
Which one?
The remake.
All right.
The Nick Cage vehicle.
One for Maddie. Once I realized we were doing cult movies, I had to take the opportunity, and I had to lose the point just to scream bees at you.
Well, now I don't feel so, nervous about my own questions, because I did pick some obvious ones. This homeless problem is getting out of hand. A guy can't even make a phone call anymore without being hassled.
A guy can't even make a phone call without being hassled. Is this a homeless guy making the phone call?
No.
But he's being hassled by a homeless guy. Oh, this is Prince of Darkness.
No.
Okay, clue?
Daniel Stern.
Okay, I give up.
Chud!
Oh. I haven't seen the original Chud. I've seen Bud the Chud like 30 times. I've probably only seen Chud the Chud like 4 times.
We're gonna have to do a Chud episode at some point.
Can we do both Chuds?
Yes.
All right.
That is an emphatic yes, sir.
2-0. I'm not off to a good start. When swimming in a pool of corpse goo, it's often helpful to have your friend beat your captor to death with the chains he was recently bound in.
Prince of Darkness?
No.
Give me a clue.
All right, let me make sure it's a real clue. Okay, I'm going to be a little bit kind to you here, and I'm going to say Donald Pleasance.
I do not remember a scene like that in Halloween.
Nope, there was no corpse goo in Halloween.
Halloween 2? I don't remember.
No corpse goo in Halloween 2.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure. That should be a children's song. No corpse goo in Halloween 2.
Gosh, he's in a lot of stuff, but I just, I'm gonna concede, sir.
Phenomena, Dario Argento.
Oh, nice pick.
Yeah.
The Dario Argento movie that everybody hates.
I love it. Are you kidding? Jennifer Connelly goes through so much hell at the end of that movie. It's so perfect.
You know what? Honestly, I prefer her in Labyrinth and Career Opportunities.
I haven't seen Career Opportunities, unless you're talking about the career opportunities in the end of that heroin movie.
Oh, no, it's... But
that's a different kind of career opportunity.
No,
That's
not at all.
That's an alternative career opportunity.
Oh my gosh, why did you remind me of that horrible destruction of my childhood when I...
Because I'm a monster, Maddie.
Oh my god, that's... when I watched that movie, my mom kept telling me, turn the movie off. And then I walked, later on I walked up to her and I was like, I finished the movie. She was like, I told you to turn the movie off.
Well, without getting too personal, the first time I watched that movie, the only time I watched it the whole way through, I actually had to leave my house. I watched it alone in my apartment at the time. and I actually had to leave my house and go to a bar just to find people to be with. Yeah, it was rough for a number of reasons. But yeah, that movie, that stuck with me too.
It's a movie that leads you down a dark and twisted path into being deceived into having hope for these characters, and you think all their lives are turning around, and then nope, pulls the rug right out from under you. Anyway, going on to my question. Okay, so there's first base, second base, third base. Which one is the one where her stomach rips open and the husk of her body collapses while purple tentacles suck you in and devour you? I forget.
These are harder than I thought they'd be.
I thought they were easy. I picked some pretty iconic scenes.
Yeah, but I also have a terrible memory. All right, give me a clue there, pal.
Chuck Russell.
Chuck Russell's not a helpful clue. I don't know who he is.
I'm sorry you have a bad memory for names.
Prince of Darkness?
No.
I would love a second clue.
Incredible Effects.
Not The Thing.
No.
Is baseball actually related, or did you just throw that in there to be clever?
I guess in a way it's related to one of the characters, but no, I didn't throw it in there to be clever. It's not related to the story.
Yeah, I don't know. Point you. I'm about to feel real dumb.
The Blob.
Oh, God damn it. I was going to say The Blob. Because that was another one of those movies that violently killed children, and I respect movies that do that.
Then you're going to have fun when we talk about Toxic Avenger. Dang.
Oh, for sure. So it's 3-1 you so far. All right, my next one is... Maddie, it's important to keep your brains in your head during an alien invasion.
Now we're sticking with movies, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that happens so often with aliens. Come on, give me a clue.
He uses a belt to keep the brains in his head that he has to continually tighten throughout the film.
Peter Jackson. Not Brain Dead. That's the alternative title for Dead Alive. Not Beautiful Creatures. What's it called? It's not Bad Taste.
There you go. Nice.
Yay! So, if death is transcending to another plane of consciousness, then what is it when you and your cohorts morph into a gigantic animated shoe? I mean, do you still have a soul?
A gigantic animated shoe? What the hell are you talking about?
I even gave you, I have 2 clues, set up for you here.
All right, give me one of them, because I need them.
Butthole Surfers.
Oh, God. Oh, what is that called? God! Is it their movie, the one at the picnic?
I don't remember a picnic.
But it's the Butthole Surfers movie. The one that they did?
They do the music. Do you want another clue?
Yes.
William Sadler.
Oh, it doesn't help.
Like I was going to pass up the chance to use a William Sadler movie.
I don't know. Forbidden Zone?
No, he is not in Forbidden Zone at all. And neither are the Butthole Surfers.
I'm going to be so pissed off because I love the Butthole Surfers. So, guys, if you notice Maddie and I still laughing, we just had to cut out a huge chunk of stuff that I said. Eventually, we might have a Patreon. If we do, donate to it, and we will show you what I've said. But I am definitely not just putting it in a regular episode. So I give up. Maddie, what is the answer?
Freaked.
Oh, I want to kill myself with a spoon.
Like the dying embers of the MTV generation. One of the best, most ridiculous movies.
That movie is totally right up your alley, too. I love that.
Oh, man, it's one of my favorite movies.
I saw that by accident, too. I just caught that randomly in the middle of a Saturday afternoon and have loved it ever since.
It's so good.
Oh, I'm so mad at myself.
Randy Quaid plays an evil circus owner. I mean, Mr. T plays a bearded woman. All right.
And Bill and Ted is the main character.
No. Yes.
Ted.
Yes.
It's Bill, right?
Shut up, Ted. Yeah, it's Bill.
Yeah.
Who actually has a name. I really like that actor. He hosted and wrote for The Idiot Box, which was a short-lived, silly skit show on MTV.
He was actually the Lost Boy I most wanted to emulate when I was a kid.
Oh, the one with the coolest jacket, yeah.
Yeah. Now, if I was to pick a Lost Boy now, it would be the one that looks like the lead singer of the Cult. The Death by Stereo one.
Oh, Dwayne?
Yeah, he would be the one I would most likely like to emulate now.
You know what? I wanted to emulate Star when I was a kid. Probably still, honestly. No interest in being a Lost Boy, but...
Yeah, she was pretty rad. And her attitude was pretty great, too. Like, I really liked that. She reminded me a lot of a girl I used to travel with without the whole vampire thing.
Well, in my analysis of the film with my many, many fan fictions that had a huge following, Star doesn't come out great. But anyway.
All right, my next question is, you may not be dead yet, but when you're crying tears of blood and gazing into the void, you don't have much time left.
Okay, I'm going to need a clue.
You know, since I've already lost, I'm just going to go for broke on the clues. Directed by Lucio Fulci.
Oh, The Beyond?
Yes, ma'am.
Yay! Okay, the next one...
That is probably one of my favorite endings to any movie ever. When they're, like, gazing off into that vast nothingness and their eyes just start bleeding. It was so beautiful.
You know, you watch a Lucio Fulci movie and you're like, is this trash? And then you watch another movie of his and you're like, oh, no, this is art. And then you watch another one after that and you're like, no, this is definitely trash.
Yeah.
You just can't pin the man down.
No, and sometimes it varies from scene to scene in his movies. But yeah, you have something as beautiful as the end of The Beyond, and then you have a scene in a movie like Demonia where somebody gets drawn and quartered up the middle by 2 trees.
Yeah, or that movie with the priest where this chick has to vomit up her own stomach.
That would be not House by the Cemetery. That is... Oh, was it also called Nightmare City? That's going to bug me. Which one is that?
It was Nightmare City, actually. I think so.
Yeah, it's got a more Seven Doors of Death, maybe. We haven't gotten to the main name.
I still want to finish up these questions, even though I have one.
Okay.
So my next one is actually going to be a long quotation, and this will be my best impersonation. There is nothing that we could not accomplish. Think about it. Think about it. Why destroy when you can create? We can have it all, or we can smash it all. Why can't we work out our differences? Why can't we work things out?
It's not terra firma.
Mm-mm.
Is it Trauma?
No. Do you want a clue?
Yeah.
Martin Short.
Martin Short. Cult movie. Horror?
Yeah. Horror sci-fi.
It's not the one where Dennis Quaid shrinks himself really little and goes inside him, right?
No, that's Inner Space.
But isn't it funnier to say Dennis Quaid shrinks himself real little and goes inside him?
You know, I prefer Dennis Quaid with a broken leg as a caveman in Caveman. But yeah, being chased by a Yeti.
I feel like I have to know this because I was such a ridiculous fan of Martin Short when I was a kid. When I got out of the shower, like I would always put my hair in that little Ed Grimley spike and run around like an idiot doing his dance.
So I guess you're a little tongue-tied?
Yeah. And then later on in life, I actually had what was called a devil lock, the haircut all the Misfits had.
Yeah.
And that also reminded me of Ed Grimley. So, yeah big Martin. Yeah, I think I'm going to give up.
Yeah, you know, I'm glad. You're not much of a gambling man, are you?
No.
Mars Attacks?
Oh, son of a bitch.
And I just dropped... Yeah, it's a few extra clues there.
I can't even remember seeing him in that movie.
Martin Short was like, he was a PA or something. I don't know. An alien dressed up as a chick and bit his tongue out.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, and I was trying to quote Jack Nicholson as the president.
Oh, that was a terrible Jack Nicholson impersonation.
Oh, shut up. Was it more of a Christian Slater impersonation?
It was more of Maddy talking a little bit different impersonation. All right. So my next question is, was it really necessary to cram the corpse of the dude you've just fed to your guests into the glass top table?
Clue.
1 second. This is pretty obvious. Richard O'Brien.
I don't know. Eating Raoul?
No. Final answer?
Yeah.
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, you picked a movie I despise.
Meatloaf again. Hey, I designed 2 sets for 2 different performances, and I danced in one performance.
You know, I especially hate this movie because I want to love it so much.
Yeah, have you seen Shock Treatment?
Mm-mm.
You should check out Shock Treatment. If you're not a Rocky Horror Picture Show fan, it's actually the sequel. It's what happens to Brandon Janet after Rocky Horror.
Interesting.
It's never mentioned, and it doesn't matter. But it's also Richard O'Brien. It's also a musical, but it's very different. I actually think you'd really like Shock Treatment. I like it better.
I'll give it a try. I love those weird sequels nobody ever heard of.
Yeah, you should check it out. And it predates reality TV, but it pretty much gets it to a T. Anyway, yeah, I'm ready for the next one.
I know it's tough to take care of a dog, but when they're constantly begging you for marshmallow fluff, it might be in your best interest to throw that junk out.
A Boy and His Dog?
No.
Prince of Darkness?
No!
It's been a while since we've guessed it.
It's been a while since we've seen Prince of Darkness.
Oh, The Stuff.
Oh, you got it.
Can't get enough of The Stuff.
One lick isn't enough.
I actually used to have nightmares about the scene when where the black guy's jaw like dehinges and opens super wide and he just starts vomiting the stuff. That scared the hell out of me when I was younger.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe that people would eat like tubs of those in that movie. That always grossed me out.
Yeah, but I mean that movie's all about marketing.
Yeah, true. People
would totally do that.
If the stuff had like a special re-release in theaters, you know, people would want to buy a novelty like tub of it.
Oh, for sure. But it wouldn't be The Stuff. It would be like a Frappuccino or something, or like an energy drink.
I feel like it would be more appropriate as like a marshmallow ice cream or something.
Yeah. Well, that would be the logical thing to do, but that's not what Hollywood would do. Hollywood would do, it would be an energy drink. It would like be Monster. And then all those guys you see who wear the baseball hats with the really flat brims and the hoodies with machine guns all over them, it would be those guys getting controlled by the stuff. So actually, in the end of the movie, everybody would be like, oh, this doesn't matter. Let's just kill all these terrible people and be done with it. So it would actually be a happy ending. All right, so I have my tiebreaker question. Do you want it?
Yes. Even though it's not even, at this point, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, you killed me. So, dying during his first transformation? So unfair. His life as a werewolf had just begun.
American Werewolf in London?
No, because he transformed before.
Yeah, he did. Can you give me a clue?
Yes, I am doing the movie's sequel today on our podcast.
Waxwork!
Yeah.
Wow, that was such a tough tiebreaker.
Yeah. Well, if I would have given you a harder clue had I any shot of winning.
That's a good movie, though. I love them both.
Yeah, I was, and we'll get into this when we get to my movie, but I was really surprised how much I enjoyed all 3 of these movies, both of mine and yours. But I had problems with Waxwork 2, but I don't think I think that's neurological. I don't think it's actually having to do with the film. But we'll get to all that.
So without further ado, let's talk about Shocker from 1989. Teenage A-student football player Jonathan Parker, with the perfect girlfriend, has a nightmare after a concussion on the field that his foster mom and sibling were massacred. Well, as it turns out, they were, and only Jonathan can find the killer. Just when he and his foster father, Lieutenant Don Parker, catch the killer after Jonathan's girlfriend is tragically murdered, things get electrifying. The killer, Horace Pinker...
Oh, God. I'm sorry. I'm going to let you finish, but electrifying.
Yes. The killer, Horace Pinker, is a psychopathic Satanist TV repairman who's made a deal with the digital devil, and death isn't really the end, only the beginning. His ghost possesses, hacks, slashes, and body hops his way back to Jonathan to have his revenge. You
just accidentally stumbled upon a better tagline than that movie ever had with that whole digital death. Say that one more time, that whole digital demon line.
The killer, Horace Pinker, is a psychopathic Satanist TV repairman who's made a deal with the digital devil, and death isn't really the end for him, only the beginning. I
will be quoting you on part of that in one of my songs, just so you know.
His ghost possesses, hacks, slashes, and body hops his way back to Jonathan to have his revenge. There's murder, mayhem, ghosts, nightmares, and reality hopping. This movie should have it all. Should. All right. Now that I've gotten through that synopsis, I ordered the Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
I was too excited about this movie. It was a Wes Craven film that I had never watched. I should have listened to my mom's advice when she told me years ago that it was terrible.
See, I disagree. I don't think it's good, but I don't think it's terrible. I think, like, this started as a Nightmare on Elm Street script, right? Can't you feel that? Like, I doubt he'd ever admit it, but this was definitely, at one point, a Nightmare on Elm Street script. I'm sure of it.
Probably, honestly. But
like, it's got everything in there. It's got, like, even the waterbed scene he took directly out of Nightmare.
Well, I've got some notes on that, too.
Okay.
So, first, I'm going to talk about some good points about this movie, because I didn't actually entirely hate it, as negative as I sound. But the music was really good. I loved the hair metal soundtrack. Like, the immediate opening song had me really super optimistic. And after I watched it and was super pissed off, I rewatched it with Wes Craven's commentary, and upon hearing his points, I sort of understood what he was aiming for, but I didn't feel the concept was there. I mean, it was supposed to be like a modern concept of the terror of something you can't trust, a shape-shifting thing that also interacts with and infects modern technology. And in fact, he mentioned the thing as an influence, and I wouldn't have known that at all if I hadn't heard him say it, because it really wasn't clear at all.
No, not at all. And this was supposed to be, like, I remember when this first came out, well, maybe years after it first came out, I remember him talking about, or reading someone talking about the fact that this was supposed to be a new franchise for, like, a new generation of fans. Mm-hmm. Like, this was supposed to bring that whole late 80s sort of hair metal kind of aesthetic to horror, and this was supposed to go on. It just unfortunately did so poorly.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't help that, like, unfortunately, the actor, Mitch Pileggi, who played, Pinkerton, he wasn't that dynamic.
Pinkerton are detectives from the 1800s.
Sorry, Pinker. He just wasn't that compelling. Most of his stuff was just him screaming and then cussing. He didn't have any charisma. And, I guess I was sort of like, I was comparing him to Robert Englund.
Oh, yeah, you have to. But I think that Mitch Pileggi was actually the best part in this movie for me. I thought he did great with what he had. I don't think he was given a whole lot to work with, but I really loved seeing him in that role. Because you always see him in these more understated sort of roles, like Skinner in X-Files. He's definitely tough, and the dude definitely gets some scenes where he really holds his own, but he's very understated. He's always playing these quiet, confident characters, and it's very rare we get to see him as this unhinged maniac, and it was really refreshing.
He's in Return of the Living Dead Part 2. He plays Sarge.
I don't own that one. It's been a minute since I've seen it.
It's a fun sequel. It's something
I like I just can't remember him.
But here's this crazy thing, because I was talking about this afternoon. It wasn't even intentional. After we did our school episode, I was like, I really want to rewatch 3 O'Clock High, and I watched it this afternoon. He was in 3 O'Clock High.
Really?
Yeah, he played Duke Herman.
Oh, man, I'm not going to sleep at all tonight, because I have to play Horizon Zero Dawn and watch 3 O'Clock High.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't a major character, but I thought that was kind of funny. He's a security guard, school security guard.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I didn't find him to be terribly compelling in this film. I liked him in other stuff, but not this one. Maybe he was trying too hard or putting too much into it. Like when you're an actor on stage and the director tells you, okay, you're at level 1 or you're at level 6 constantly. Level 6 is impressive if you're not at it throughout the entire thing. You don't want to come out level 6 or it's not impressive at all. You want to be at level 1, level 3, level 2, occasionally level 4. If you're constantly intense and over the top, it takes away from the performance.
Yeah, I mean, Normally, I would probably agree with you, but this is a movie about a dude who casts a spell to a TV god so he can turn into an electric man who travels through electrical lines and televisions to continue murdering. I don't think subtle is really what they were going for.
Okay, well, when you put it that way... I thought it was really cool that the Hindenburg was kind of referenced several times. If you noticed it, there was like film clips of it on the television sets, and I think Jonathan had a poster in his bedroom. And in the commentary, Wes mentioned how it had been a defining moment of the loss of innocence and what I suppose would be considered blind trust in developing technology in the 20th century.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. It's basically the reason we don't have those things flying around still to this day.
Yeah, I felt like most smarter points of this movie only made sense once I heard Wes Craven actually say them, though. You know, the Rotten Tomatoes score on this was even lower than Disturbing Behavior. It has 20%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, I thought this thing would get at least some nostalgia points.
Yeah, or
I'm a little disappointed.
Or some buffer points for being a Wes Craven movie, you know?
Yeah.
I love that electricity shine in the jail cell. I just wish there'd been more, like, sort of Santeria influences in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we would have seen a little bit more of that if it would have become a franchise. I think they would have delved into the lore a little bit more.
That's a good point. The moment I kind of was like, oh god, what did I get myself into, though, is after that electric shine thing when he was like, give me the power or whatever. And then those lips came out of the TV and said, you got it, baby? What
you got it, baby.
Why?
I think they were trying to pull off some sort of VJ sort of MTV impersonation, and it just came off as very out of touch and ridiculous.
Even Cool World was cooler than that.
Mm-hmm.
They were really ambitious but cheap. I mean, the physical stuff was good, like the tongue ripping, the throat slicing, the bloody stuff, but the digital things, like those lips. Even the bit where they fall into the bed you mentioned earlier and it turns into water made me reminisce about how incredible the waterbed sequence in Nightmare on Elm Street 4 was in comparison.
Yeah, you're right. Although I did think some of the bad effects worked. Like, anytime you saw Pinker in sort of his half ghost state where he was covered in white noise fuzz, you know, the dead channel fuzz. Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool. And that was definitely because they didn't have enough money to make it look good. I thought it looked better because it looked so bad, if that makes sense. It looked like bad TV. I thought it was perfect.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing I'll argue with you on. Everything else was crap. You're right.
But, you know, watching the film on its own wasn't especially a great experience for me. But again, like I said, watching it with Wes's commentary made it way better. He was such an intelligent man, and I mean, his reasoning for the choices he made in his films sound good. Even if the results don't really reflect what he's talking about, I'm glad I listened. I would definitely recommend watching it with Wes Craven's commentary.
I'll give it a shot down the road. So I want to pitch something to you, Maddie. I want to pitch a sequel for this movie. Do you think this is an okay place for my pitch?
Well, considering that I'll probably use it in a fan fiction, go for it.
Okay, so I think the sequel needs to be all about Jonathan dealing with the cancer that he got while traveling through the nuclear test footage scenes. I feel like maybe it could be like that movie Philadelphia, only with cancer instead of AIDS and less politics and probably more murder. So maybe it won't be like Philadelphia at all, but I think it should be about Jonathan dealing with all the cancer he has now.
How can you fit in a homoerotic situation into this? Because that's the only way you're going to be able to market it as a good fan fiction.
Easy. He's a football player, and he has all those bros on his team. And, football players do weird stuff in the shower. When I was in high school, my high school football team, Maddie, they used to pee on each other in the shower. These kids used to call me fag as an insult in the hallways, but they peed on each other in the shower. Football and homoeroticism, that's like cake and ice cream, dude.
Wes was really fascinated with family murders. That's a big thing in a lot of his films. And what was that bit where Pinker was giving his like crazy speech about like during his death sequence, like where that lady yelled, "The prisoner has a right to speak"? Really? He's calling out all this shit and describing how he murdered someone, and he has a right to tell them this?
Oh yeah, was that was the doctor, right? That was the lady doctor. Like they were really like heavy-handedly making sure we knew that she was against capital punishment and all about prisoners' rights. I think in a hope to make her death mean something, but because this movie was so cartoony from the Get Out, like it just didn't work. Like, I didn't care when she died. Although the brutality in this film was somewhat difficult occasionally, like the fact that pretty much everyone Jonathan loved in this movie except for his dad, brutally dead. Like
there was an awful lot of setup. It was really hard not to compare it on Nightmare on Elm Street because of the obvious parallels. The cop dad, the teens fighting evil, the reality and dream hopping, the serial killer, the dark sense of humor. And the fact that the setup for the original Nightmare on Elm Street was so much better, because all you got in the origin story was him putting that glove together in the intro sequence, right?
Oh, that's a great scene, though.
Oh,
so good.
And I just kept thinking, that was such a good intro sequence. Like 40 minutes in, when Pinker still hadn't been caught.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, this was definitely at one point, if it wasn't a Nightmare on Elm Street script originally, it was definitely like stuff that didn't make it into either other Nightmare on Elm Street scripts or got cut out of Nightmare on Elm Street films.
It's got to be, because it hit the screens right when Nightmare on Elm Street 5 came out.
Yeah, so he was definitely recycling stuff in hopes for well, he was doing his thing, but I'm sure that the studios were telling him to recycle some stuff to start up a new franchise. They were really going for a formula that worked, and they just didn't make it work a second time.
And speaking of franchises, even though it's a different franchise and it was a little later, Friday the 13th, Part 9, Jason Goes to Hell. I never really thought I would say that movie did anything better. But with the body hopping, that movie did it better.
Yeah, and so did that movie The Fallen with John Goodman and Denzel Washington. They were a little more subtle with everything in that movie, but...
Yeah. Is it just weird to you that Jonathan figured out those body hopping rules so fast?
Everything about Jonathan was weird to me. Like, I'll start with this. So when his dad calls, when his after the dream, when his family's murdered, Jonathan asks his dad, "Is the family all right?" That is such an awkward way to ask about your family. Like, I almost heard it in a British accent. Like, "Is the family all right, Father? Father, has something happened to the family?"
Do pardon the question.
Like, it was just, it was just so awkward and weird. And on top of that, like, he describes these murders exactly to his dad, but his dad doesn't believe him until he describes the van. Like, the van was the tipping point in that. Like, Jonathan, like, that family just has weird priorities. It's, yeah.
Yeah, my first thought would have been, wait a minute, where was Jonathan on the night that this happened?
Well, that comes up at one point. He does accuse him, when they stumble upon the coach and Sam Raimi's character dead, he says, "Did you know about the fingers because you were there," kind of thing.
Sam Raimi?
Was it, what did I say?
You said Sam Raimi.
Wasn't that Sam Raimi?
Ted Raimi.
Oh, that was Ted? Oh, that was Ted. Yeah, sorry, Ted.
Yeah. Now, I've got to say this, but Deus Ex Girlfriend Ghost made me think of Grandpa in Troll 2. "This is the last time I show up, so this is the last time I can save you. Okay, I'm showing up one more time. Remember I told you last time this was the last time I'd show up?" It pretty much kind of reminded me of Grandpa from Troll 2.
Yeah, we got a little bit of that in my movie, too, but at least when he says it's the last time, it actually is the last time.
You know, and I felt like, as far as writing flaws go, I feel like Jonathan should have had vague dreams of his mom and fragmented memories of her instead, his biological mom. No girlfriend ghost, just his mom's ghost. I think it would have had more impact and made that relationship between him and, spoiler alert, his real father, Pinker, a little bit more sensible.
Yeah, and I think it would have made more sense, too, because his mother would have been in the afterlife a lot longer, so she would have understood those rules better, as opposed to his girlfriend just immediately being, like, super ghost.
Yeah. I did love when Pinker possessed the chair, though, and it had eyes like cherries.
Yeah, that was rad. It's exactly what I thought, too. That's Cherry!
Cherry, what are you doing?
Killing.
And that TV chase sequence was fun. It was like a music video.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Alice Cooper, of course.
That's gotta be, like... The effects guys were like, oh, this is going to be groundbreaking. This is the first time anybody's done anything like this. And it probably was. Like, I don't remember seeing anybody superimposed into old footage before that necessarily, at least on an interactive level that this, like this. But yeah, that they were super stoked about it and they thought people were going to love it. And unfortunately, people just didn't.
It seemed like a lot of the action sequences felt a little drawn out. And I feel like if your action sequences feel drawn out, the exact opposite of what an action sequence should be, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
And
they did push some of that.
There's a bit at the end where he looks up at the stars and says something about it, and Allison, in his head, because at this point I'm just assuming he's insane, says, "Oh, they're beautiful." I pictured like a superimposed image of her ghost, like him seeing her in the stars or something, just a really stupid, cheesy moment like that. And I was like, please don't do it. Please don't do it. Please don't do it. And luckily they didn't.
Well, I think they did, but I just don't think it transferred well. I'm pretty sure that heart necklace outlines in the sky, but it does it so poorly that it's really hard to notice. I'm pretty sure I saw that. There were little bits of weird editing things there was a scene when him and his father were up on that radio tower. He was talking, but the character wasn't saying anything. Like, there was some overdubbing that came out real weird in parts too.
Well, maybe it was just rushed to the screen faster than it should have been. Like, they had a deadline when they had planned for a few more months or something, Oh,
I could see that.
Yeah.
Or they were already taking too long and over budget or something.
And
yeah.
I'll give it the point that despite the many, 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 many issues with this film, I mean, clearly there's a lot of love put into it. A lot of love. So that definitely counts for something.
Yeah, and that could be the reason I like it so much. I've said this repeatedly in this show that if there's heart and there's love behind something, like, I'll support it 100%.
Maybe part of my venom is because I just really wanted to watch Stay Tuned.
I still really want to watch Stay Tuned, man. I need to find that.
You know what? Pleasantville is also a good one. It's not a horror film, but that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
As far as reality jumping movies are concerned, not that it's not pretty obvious which one you picked. Do you have anything else to say about mine?
No, I think I've pretty much covered everything. Yep. I didn't have a whole lot of notes on this. There's really not a whole lot to say about this because it is as much as I liked it, it is a pretty vapid experience.
Yeah, I hope I laid it out well enough. I'd say if you want a copy and you want to watch it with commentary because it's a much deeper experience, I guess. It's more enjoyable. Also, Mel Brooks does really great commentaries. Not really on topic, but if you get the chance, watch a Mel Brooks commentary, too. They're great.
Yeah, that's way off topic, dude. I'm like, wait, why would Mel Brooks be commenting on Shocker?
Well, no, he did, but, like, on his movies. I'm just saying, I really enjoy director commentary.
Well, if we want to talk director commentaries for a second, have you ever heard the Cannibal the Musical commentary with Trey Parker and Matt Stone?
I feel like I have, but I love Cannibal the Musical.
Yeah, me too. They get super drunk during their commentary, and they just start talking about going to a strip club for, like, the end of it.
Those guys are right up there on, like, Andy Warhol level of trolling, where it's like, have they taken the mask off or have they not? I don't care.
For sure.
They're just so priceless. So let me give you a little intro song into yours with my own rendition of the rap. Okay.
That's very good. I actually talk about the rap at the end, too.
All right. Awesome.
Because that affected me. Ladies and gentlemen, my film was Waxwork II, Lost in Time. I also rewatched Waxwork, but I must not have been paying attention when I watched it, because I got them both on a 2-in-1 DVD, so they're both on the same DVD on the same side. And I started watching it, and I was recording my notes. I'm like, oh, John Rhys Davies is in this one again. Oh, David Warner's in this one again. Cool. And I'm like, oh, wait. And the title screen comes up, and I'm like, oh, I'm watching Waxwork again. Shit. And then it took me another 3 minutes to figure out, because my PlayStation remote is not super intuitive when it comes to getting back to menus, and I couldn't get back to the menu. It was a big thing, and it was a very trying evening or morning. I watched it at like 8 o'clock this morning. Yeah. So anyway, this factors into my viewing of Waxwork 2, because for some reason, like, I love this movie. I love the first one, but I couldn't keep focus for some reason. I don't know if it's because I've seen it a few times or what, but I kept like zoning out, and I'd have to rewind it and watch stuff over again. It was real weird. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it must be neurological. Like, something must have been happening in my brain, or I must have drank too much whiskey this morning.
What the heck?
Yeah, I'm on vacation. What do you want?
I don't understand. I mean, I guess I was a little drunk.
It's not that. I mean, it was 8 a.m. too, so I was a little bit drunk, and I had just woken up not too long ago. This makes me sound like a horrible alcoholic, ladies and gentlemen.
Great case for yourself.
And I am quite functional. Let's just leave it at that. So this movie does probably my favorite thing that a sequel can do. It picks up right after the first has left off, and our heroes have to deal with the consequences of their actions in the first movie. Movies never do this, and this one actually did, and it's so perfect. So it opens up with the final battle again. Well, the outcome of the final battle. So you see David Warner fall into the wax and all that stuff. Where am I here?
See, this is what drinking does to you. You don't even know where you are.
Yeah, right. So the battle ends, and it's them leaving this burning waxwork, and a severed hand that had escaped from the zombie reality in the waxwork and also escaped the fire followed them to their cab. It ends up going home with Sarah when they split off, and it kills her father, and she's tried for his murder. And the whole scene after her father's killed, there's this very Evil Dead 2 homage fight scene with the severed hand. Like, she sticks it down the garbage disposal and blood spurts out everywhere. It was definitely a shout out to Evil Dead, which relates to the film because Bruce Campbell is in it a little bit later, in the best scene in the movie, for that matter.
When he was still gorgeous.
Yes, he was quite pretty back then. I think he's still pretty now, but
in a different way.
Yeah, like I don't know. He's like George Clooney pretty. If he's like the George Clooney of B movie stars, I think.
I like Bruce. I love Bruce Campbell.
So do I. I love George Clooney too. So this severed hand kills her father, and she is arrested and put on trial for her father's murder. But for some reason, out on bail and allowed to leave the courtroom, even though she's got this crazy story about waxworks coming to life and a severed hand killing her father. They still let her go home every day after court. So Mark, played by Zach Galligan of Gremlins fame.
Gremlins 1 and 2.
Gremlins 1 and 2, yes. Gets the bright idea that they need to find a way back into the alternate universe to find proof to bring back and show the court to clear Sarah of her name.
Yeah, let's just roll with it, Mark.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just dive back into this horrible thing we just finished dealing with. So they go back to Sir Wilfrid's house, who died in the first one, which is actually super hilarious because when he died in the first one, it was a werewolf pulling off his head and him screaming.
My goodness!
Yeah, in the scene. Well, they don't do that in the first one.
Oh.
That's what I'm getting to. So they show that death again, but they overdub him saying, "Oh my goodness," and the head's being ripped off. It's so great, and it just sets the tone for what ridiculousness we're about to get into. So they find a device that looks like a compass. It's called like the Cartesian device or something. Cartograph, yeah, because that's what the universe is, but I'm just going to call it the time thingy because I didn't feel like watching that again to look it up. This thing was apparently used by angels, both good and evil, to travel through time. This sends them into what they later describe as God's Nintendo, where he and the devil use their time warriors to fight for all eternity. And if evil wins, something bad happens on Earth, like an earthquake or a tornado or like 9/11, I guess. Some sort of terrible thing happens. But I don't know, like, what happens. Like, I imagine the good guys are winning a lot. Like, I mean, if this was today, if this battle's going on today, obviously evil is winning a whole hell of a lot. Like, what happens when good people win? Like, is that just a day where nobody gets murdered? Is that like a day without a tidal wave?
I think it's a day that prevents a massive tidal wave.
Could be. Or a day where a tornado doesn't level a trailer park.
Well, think about it this way. When you build a dam to prevent flooding in a city, the dam doesn't suddenly make the city better, but it prevents the flooding.
That's true. So you're saying the bad guys are essentially just breaking the dam.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It's called Waxwork II Lost in Time, but it should probably be called Waxwork II Lost in Bad Movie Spoofs.
Oh, man, but the Back to the Future reference.
Wait, there's a Back to the Future reference that I missed?
Lost in Time, Back in Time, at the very end of the movie when the time compass is kept in that package by that delivery service for hundreds of years.
Oh, yeah, okay, you're right. They end up getting this, they see this video that Sir Wilfrid had recorded for them. And it tells them to follow Alice through the looking glass. And these Alice in Wonderland riddles, quote, are so bad and so simple. They're both the same thing. So he's looking around trying to figure out, oh, follow Alice through the looking glass. Here's this looking glass. What could it mean? He's poking at it and doing his thing. Sarah just reaches over, who is played by Monica Schneider, I believe.
I actually liked this Sarah better than the one from part one. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but...
Yeah, the part one Sarah looked really familiar too. Oh, she was Warlock, the Armageddon.
Yeah, which is funny because the director of this one, Anthony Hickox, directed Warlock to the Armageddon, and he also directed Sundown, Vampire in Retreat with Bruce Campbell, Hellraiser 3, but we don't need to talk about that, and he directed Waxwork 1 as well. And he played the Prince in part 1 and the guard in part 2.
I actually really like Hellraiser 3, but we don't need to argue about that right now. We'll see that for another time. Anyway, so yeah, it turns out this whole Alice in Wonderland riddle means the Alice piece on the chessboard is looking at this mirror, so pick her up and the door behind the mirror will open. So they do that, and they go in there. They find the time thingy. They activate it. They jump through. Well, Mark jumps through. He kind of forces Sarah to go through because she doesn't want to have anything to do with it, really. And they end up in, because she thinks that he wants her to run. She thinks he's taking her away from her problems when she just wants to face it head on, which there's a strength in that. I can respect her for that.
Yeah, but also, I mean...
Like, she's screwed if she stays right now. Yeah, there's no...
How are they going to find her?
Right. Well, that's true, too. Anyway, so they end up in Frankenstein land first. And, of course, Sarah, again, just like in the first one, gets possessed by the place and can't remember who she truly is. This happens a lot throughout the movie. Everywhere Sarah ends up, she takes on the personality of whoever's body she's supposed to be in.
You know, she's such a damsel in distress.
Yeah, I mean, she has her moments, but this was a little more damsel-y than I'm comfortable with in most horror movies.
You know, even in the Alien Sigourney Weaver kind of sequence, she still has to be rescued.
Yep. I'll get to it at the end, but she definitely sort of, there's a couple of fights in the end where I think she redeems herself, but we're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah.
Mark jumps into Victor Frankenstein's best friend's body, and he ends up getting locked in the basement. Victor Frankenstein locks him in the basement with Frankenstein, and Frankenstein's down there gesturing to his food bowl. So Mark realizes that the monster is hungry, and he starts looking around for food. And here he makes a joke that has been made in many different types of movies all throughout history since pizza delivery has been a thing. They're looking for food, and he says, oh, let's order out for a pizza. Normally, I'd be like, hey, what a stupid joke. But for some reason, the fact that he's saying this to Frankenstein while standing next to a barrel of slop, it was just perfect, and it actually made me laugh. So, yeah, the absurdity of the whole thing was just brilliant to me.
I think this is my favorite monster design. This is how I kind of imagine Frankenstein's monster, you know, inhuman, corpse-like, animalistic, yellowed skin stretched taut over a semi-rotted face.
It is pretty good. Did you write that down, or did you just make that up?
I wrote that down because
I was
really wanted to make that point.
That was good. I think my favorite depiction of Frankenstein is probably Robert De Niro's. Unpopular opinion.
I think he had his points, but that movie had its flaws too.
It did. It really did.
And this,
anyway.
Yeah, this Waxwork 2 is kind of just as crazy as Gremlins 2 was. So, Zach Galligan's in both. Coincidence?
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, no, this happened before. Well, this would have been around the same time as Gremlins 1 and 2, huh?
Well, Gremlins 2 at least, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, villagers show up, a fight ensues, and Sarah and Mark escape after Frankenstein has his way with poor Victor. And it's actually pretty cartoony and hilarious. There's a lot of head squeezing in this movie. He squeezes Victor's head until his eyes pop out, and Mark's standing there like dodging these eyes and going like, ugh. This is pretty hilarious. So
his brain gets squeezed out.
Oh, yeah, his brain gets squeezed out of his head and Mark catches it. That was pretty great. They get split up again, and Sarah ends up, only they get split up further away this time. Mm-hmm. Sarah ends up in aliens land, and it's very important that I say aliens, not alien, because they have the Colonial Marines up there, so it's definitely an aliens spoof. And Mark ends up trapped in a world cross between The Haunting and The Haunting of Hell House.
Oh, it really is.
Yeah, because he's basically playing the role of the mousy psychic in Hell House with the like grabbing his head and screaming type stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's Mark's character, but everything I could read, they were comparing it to The Haunting. I don't know, so I just said it was a cross between.
Well, yeah, all the other characters are pretty much copies of the characters from The Haunting.
Yeah. So this has the greatest scene in the film, and this is where Bruce Campbell comes into play, which is definitely a coincidence. He plays John Loftmore, who is the head ghost hunter, and he somehow, I'm not sure if, we'll call her Deanna Troi, because she's Deanna Troi in Star Trek The Next Generation. So either Deanna Troi's character possessed by this ghost, or the other 60s girl, the blonde. There's always a blonde and a brunette. So one of them tied Bruce Campbell up to, I think it was a wine rack. Do you remember?
I think it was, yeah.
And they cut his chest open. So he's stuck up there, chest cavity exposed to the world, like completely incapacitated. And during this whole fight scene between these possessed girls, he keeps getting things thrown at him, like a piece of rope, like random stuff. At one point, a bag of salt gets thrown in his wound, and he starts screaming and going crazy, screaming for help. And Mark runs over. He's screaming for water. So Mark grabs a bottle of what he thinks is water and dumps it on the salt. It turns out to be vinegar. So it makes it worse until Bruce Campbell's character is like, no, it's okay. It's gone numb. This is easily the best scene in the movie because Bruce Campbell is always at his best when he's being abused. I absolutely loved every moment of this.
It was fantastic.
Yeah. After all this is dealt with, Mark goes on some kind of off-screen adventure. He shows up finally in aliens land to save the day again. We've got the damsel in distress problem. He shows up with this big voodoo casket meant to bring the dead back to life. And this is his second bright idea. His first bright idea was to bring Victor Frankenstein's notes back to our reality so he can resurrect the dead and prove that it can be done to get her out of jail. They lose the book, so then in his off-screen travels, he ends up with this big voodoo coffin and some other bits and bobs to bring the dead back to life that way.
And it's implied that he took the coffin through multiple worlds, too.
Yeah, he's been carrying this thing around multiple worlds. So there's one more alien left, which is more of a cross between an alien and a predator. It seemed like they mixed the two into one beast.
A little Cthulhu there, too.
Yeah, a little Cthulhu there. It looked okay. So during his heroics, while he's fighting this other alien, he loses the time thingy, and not before they jump through another door, but this traps them in medieval land. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really sure what this part is spoofing, but David Carradine is in it, so
Lady
it doesn't...
Hawk. Legend.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit Lady Hawk. Less legend than Lady Hawk.
Well, yeah, but young man on a quest to save his girlfriend.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of spoofing all that stuff. It's like, that's actually my next paragraph. It's pretty standard fare for the next few scenes. It's about an evil sorcerer who wants to take over the kingdom by impersonating the king. Mark gets captured again, and Sarah's personality is again lost in this reality as the sorcerer's sister, who he also wants to marry for some reason.
Pure race.
We're
He's
going
German.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll go with that. So this is when we get a visit by Sir Wilfrid in Raven form. And he's there to explain the stuff I mentioned earlier about Time Warriors and God's Nintendo and all that stuff. And that David Carradine was actually his real grandfather. And he gives Mark the time thingy back, but warns him that they've already used up one of the 2 time doors home. You can go anywhere you want through time, but you can only go from our reality to our reality once each. Again, we get another Alice Through the Looking Glass riddle, which is take a minute to think about it and then guess.
The most vague riddle ever that doesn't really...
That doesn't really matter. And again, it just ends up being like, go over to that mirror and do something. Mm-hmm. This is where the final battle begins. The longest sword fight in the history of sword fights.
Hold up. Before the final battle, one of the transformation experiments with the girl turning into the half cat thing terrified me when I was a kid.
I can see how that would happen. Yeah, it's pretty messed up. It's
Okay.
pretty visceral the way they do it. I dug that.
Yeah, down to the awesome final battle.
Yeah. So this epic sword fight takes them through many, many different lands. First, it takes them through Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde land, with a pretty great gag where Mr. Hyde is sitting there with his potion and he sees them come through a time door and he looks at his potion like, what is this? What have I been drinking? I thought it was another play on that standard, like something weird happens, the drunk looks at his drink, but they made it absurd and more ridiculous, and it works. Like, it's not easy for a movie to recycle a joke that's been used hundreds of times before and make it funny. This movie pulls it off a few times.
Yeah.
So after Jekyll and Hyde land, it takes them to what at first glance looks like Saturday Night Fever land, but it turns out to really be the end of Dawn of the Dead land, where they have to fight through the final battle for the mall between the heroes, the zombies, and the bikers.
It is so great.
This is another one of my favorite parts in this movie. So during the battle, one of the zombies gets his hand severed. Remember this because it'll be important in a minute. They get out of that world and then time travel to Jack the Ripper land with the severed hand, again important in a minute, just in time to thwart Jack's most recent conquest by kicking him into silent film Nosferatu land, where they end up as well. We never learn of Jack's fate, but we do now know why the case was never solved. He was trapped in Nosferatu land.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, that's obviously real life. So they fight through there for a minute, and then all of a sudden they end up in Godzilla land, complete with slightly racist haircuts and very bad dubbing.
Oh, no!
All Godzilla fans will get the bad dubbing thing. Yeah, oh no. This is where Sarah finally gets her moment. While they're off fighting in Godzilla land, she's holding her own against the sorcerer's toady. And they're fighting, and at one point he gets her on the ground and he's on top of her talking some gross shit about death and orgasms and trying to kiss her this whole time.
The creepy dad from Ghoulies.
Yeah, exactly. But he's just creepy enough and into his creeping enough that she's able to take his own dagger and just bury it into his back, killing him. Then all of a sudden, Mark and the sorcerer come back through with this random robot.
Robbie, kind of.
Yeah, kind of. So they're back in medieval land now, where the sorcerer is finally killed with a little help from not only the severed zombie hand, but the woman he turned into a half-panther thing earlier that I forgot to mention, but Maddie took care of. With their foe finally vanquished, they try to solve the final riddle. Take a minute to think about it, then guess. Turns out it just means go use a mirror again. Before they can jump through this last mirror back home, one of the sorcerer's soldiers, one of his lead generals, stops them and gets into a fight with Mark. And I don't really remember what happened to him because, again, I kept losing focus during the movie, but his jaw's all hanging and really long and stretched out and his tongue's sticking out.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So he's trying to choke Mark out against the wall, and Sarah gets another moment by grabbing a mace and just straight burying it into the dude's head, killing him. So they've vanquished their final foe. They're ready to go home. But wait, they've waited too long. The door is closing, and it's too small for two people. It can now only fit one person. So Mark makes Sarah go with the severed hand to clear her name. And this works. She's free, and the courts now have a severed zombie hand in a hamster cage. The world will never be the same again. Like, this changes the landscape of warfare. This changes probably menial labor. Like, that single zombie hand will completely change the shape of the universe.
And it's so bored, just drumming his fingers on the bottom of the cage.
Tap, tippy tap. On the courthouse steps, Sarah gets a package from the oldest delivery service in the world containing a time thingy and a note that says simply, "Join me." And she does, as a blue light flashes from the cab as it's driving away, and we all live happily after. At least until these two, who are completely ill-equipped to fight in a war like this, run out of luck and die horribly in a spoof version of Nightmare on Elm Street or Day of the Triffids or something. Like, it doesn't end well, but it ends well right here.
I can't help but look back at the first movie and at all those wax sculptures, and I remember the Invisible Man version they have where he's at the car feeding the gas pump into that woman's mouth. And I kind of wish that could have been a sequence in this one.
Yeah, that they stumbled upon that. There was also another world that they stumbled upon briefly, like Sarah just looks into it. I think it was an invasion of the Body Snatchers world. It's real weird. Like, she sticks her head in, she sees this slimy egg-like thing, and then two people running from a truck. I think it's a reference that I'm just not getting.
It is. It's a reference to Body Snatchers. Body Snatchers. It's a whole genre.
Okay. So yeah, like I said, I love this movie. I love the first one. I love the fact that it has absolutely no message, no moral, no ulterior motive. It's just a fun movie. Both of them are, but this one definitely revels in its cheesiness. And I kind of feel bad for ruining it for you guys, but I skipped a whole bunch of good stuff, so you should still go watch it anyways.
Plus, at this point, you're kind of used to us ruining movies.
Yeah, I mean, plus, like, if you're listening to a show talking about movies, you're going to ruin movies. So.
Yeah, exactly. I will say, though, that, like, within the first 5 minutes, you will either know whether you're going to love this movie or hate it.
Definitely.
You'll know.
So, do you have anything else before I get to my credits bit on this one?
Well, I mean, I would just say that this was kind of a junk food movie for me when I was a kid. I would stay up, late and watch HBO, and whenever Waxwork II was on, that would be my movie for the night.
Yeah, this is another one of those Friday movies with me and my best friend. It's definitely got some nostalgia attached to it for me. So it ends with a custom rap song with a video that uses the sets and actors. The song is not good. It's a terrible rap song by a group that called themselves the LA Posse, and they use scenes from the film, which is something I absolutely miss. You just don't get this anymore. It used to happen all the time back in the day with all sorts of different movies, from like Nightmare on Elm Street to Armageddon. In fact, Armageddon may be one of the last examples, although I'm too lazy to research that. I don't remember seeing anything after that Aerosmith song. Maybe Aerosmith ruined it.
Well, when we open up our Muppet Company, we'll bring it back.
Okay, sounds good. But yeah, like I said, it's a terrible song, but it was really cool to see again because it made me think about how miserable the actors probably were.
Aww.
Because no, seriously, they were all in this video. And here's how that had to have gone. These dudes probably spent all day filming their actual movie, like good 8, 9, 10-hour days, some of them in makeup for even longer than that. And then all of a sudden, the director's like, all right, guys, we're done shooting for today, but you got to stick around and dance like morons while this LA Posse lip-sync to their substandard rap beats.
Okay, Zach looked like he was having fun.
Okay, yeah, but I think that's just because he realized his career was on a downturn and he was just did all he could for the last few movies he could. The credits also state that this film was entirely shot in the fourth dimension and that Godzilla was played by himself. If that's the case, he looks like shit out of makeup because this was a terrible Godzilla.
Well, you don't know what the real Godzilla looks like.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if Godzilla really looks like Godzilla on a budget, it's a good thing Godzilla has good makeup artists in Toho. So there you go, guys. Waxwork 2, Lost in Time. Go watch it.
But watch Shocker first so that you have something better to watch afterwards.
Yeah, there you go.
If you want to check out our blog, check us out at hallow-holic.blogspot.com or hallow-holic.wordpress.com.
You can also find us on Twitter at Nowhere23 or search for Hallow-Holics.
And you can email us at Hallow-Holics@outlook.com. Express interest in just how much you want to see Corey in black lingerie when he opens his coffin box.
Oh, I'll do it. It'll be purty. Purty.
And I hesitate to ask this, but Hori...
Hori will be my drag name.
Corey, will you please tell them about Podpedia?
Yes. And I don't have a gun to my head right now as I say this.
Just say it.
So we are also on Podpedia. It is a wiki for podcasts that is fairly new, and they really want your support. So go check us out there. Portal is Hallow-Holics Anonymous, so go there and search for us. Search for other stuff. Find new podcasts. Enjoy Podpedia.
So
we have to say that.
All right, so what have we learned?
Don't sign terms and conditions without reading them first. Duh.
And?
If someone offers me free cable, it's probably Satan. Again.
Hey, look, I see an exit.
Maddie, I don't think that's a...